performing analysis. Talking about the categorization, we can see because there are too many publications, so it might be difficult to categorize. There are different ways to categorize and review the literature. One way is to categorize them based on different wars and conflicts. For example, like the China-US trade war, or the ongoing Ukraine war, or the Israel-Palestinian conflict. Another way is to categorize all the data based on different themes in terms of the media conflict studies. So we haven't decided. So as I said, we are still in the very initial stage of this literature review. So we're going to make some adjustments, and we're trying to use the literature and to draw from the data sets the main discourses, the main narratives, in order to answer the two research questions we have raised in the beginning. So I think that's all for my presentation. As I said, it is very brief because we haven't rolled out this research in full scale. So thank you very much for your time and listening. And
Yes.
see if my two collaborators, the two co-authors, have anything to say.
They don't have anything to say.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Do they have anything to say, or they don't have?
I don't think I don't think they have anything to add.
No, okay. No, okay.
Just
Yeah.
send me WeChat me saying bravos.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's
okay.
yeah, thank you so much. That's great. You gave really a good picture of your project. Okay, thank you. So let us hear if anyone has a question. If you have any questions, so please just raise your hand. So yes, who starts first? Or was it Sarah or Mustafa? I think it has to be ladies first. So Sarah will start.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ehab, and thank you, Xixin, for this interesting presentation. Indeed, it seems to me that it's quite a huge undertaking for a chapter. So I wonder, I mean, maybe in discussions with the editors, you could maybe focus it on a conflict that would tie in with the other chapters. But I mean, it seems like it's fascinating. I'd love to read more about how conflicts since the Cold War have been covered in the Chinese media. Of course, more also from the Middle East space. But it just feels to me that for a chapter, this might be too much, too wide, casting the net too wide. But yeah, fascinating. I look forward to reading it.
Very much, Sarah, for your comments and insights. Yeah, as I said in my presentation, I'm a bit worried that the data set might be too large, but but I think it is important to have a systematic data review to see how Chinese news media cover the international wars and conflicts in both languages. I'm quite sure that there shall be big contrasts or differences between these two data sets, the English one, English literature and Chinese literature. And also by looking at the literature over like 3 decades, I think that we can find some changes, and also we can identify the focus of the Chinese media because I study Chinese media, so I know that my hypothesis is that most of the Chinese news coverage is closely related to Chinese foreign policy and national interests. So I think that it is important and necessary to have this historic overview about the research. Yeah, thank you for your insights, Sarah.
Yeah, actually, I have followed the Arabic speaking Chinese TV station for many years, and I find it really interesting. And
yeah,
I talk about it in the winter 2022 in a conference in Iceland. So comparing with the Arab speaking TV station covering the Ukraine-Russian war.
Yes, we know that eventually CNTV, in the past, it was called CCTV, because China had this very ambitious and large-scale project of like outgoing project. So they are sending more and more journalists overseas and to establish the presence overseas to boost the China's image and the soft power overseas. So media is one of the main venue for China to project the soft power. So yeah, CNTV has many channels in many languages. So you can see that it's building up. Well, for some local media and some commercial media, they might be shrinking, but we see that the state media news outlets, they are actually expanding, and they are just gaining more influence overseas.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
So we have a question from Mustafa.
Yeah, thank you, Wahab. Thank you very much for your presentation. I think it's amazing to have a review research, something we were missing during this workshop. I'm really curious about your methods. When you mention the qualitative analysis, the first thing that comes to my mind are interviews, focus groups, case studies, and observations. So my question is, how can qualitative research be applied within the context of a review study? And if this is going to be a systematic review, I think a quantitative part in the methods will be needed.
As I said in the beginning, because it is a book chapter, so we are not going to conduct any like empirical research. So you mentioned all these common or commonly used research methods like focus group, interviews, questionnaire surveys. All these very conventional research methods is mainly used for the empirical research. So we are not going to conduct any empirical research. Mainly, this is just a book chapter focused based on the literature review. So yeah, I understand that the literature review, usually we do not call the literature review a research method, but because the whole chapter is based on the literature review, and also we wanted to conduct this systematic and comprehensive literature review. So we do plan to use this thematic narrative analysis to conduct the literature review. That's why I put the thematic narrative analysis and data collection or sampling methods in the research methods part.
Great.
I hope I have answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Do we have more questions? Okay, so if we don't have more questions, so it's really good that we have a little time, and we have to thank Professor Xing on her presentation. Thank you so much for your insightful presentation. I think really your presentation added a significant value to our workshop. Thank you so much. So
So much. You have. I'll be here listening to other speakers. Thank you.
yeah, thank you so much. Thanks a lot. And now we are going to move to our next speaker. I can't see her here. Anna, are you there? Actually, Anna? Yeah, I'm really surprised that I didn't hear from her last week at all. I sent many mails and I didn't have any reaction, so I'm afraid that's something wrong with her. Yeah, okay. So, and I didn't say in the beginning that we have a little bit change in our program, because one of our speaker, I got a mail from her yesterday, and she's sick. So we will finish a bit early in that's what we planned. So, Anna, are you there? Professor Anna from the communication department in Poland. Okay, I will send her an email and try to catch her if it's possible. So our next speaker, Dr. Edina, are you there? She's not. Mustafa, are you ready?
Yeah, not really, but I can do it. I'll try to do it. No problem. I can save the situation. It's okay. So
Okay.
I can, yeah.
Okay. So if you are ready, so we can start, and I will try to catch
Sure.
and Dr. Edina.
Sure.
Okay.
Just a moment.
Yeah. I know it's a little bit stress when you didn't plan for it.
It is not only about that, just because my work is still in progress, so I needed a little more time, some more time. But I think it's gonna be okay. So can you see my slides?
Yes, we can. And I would like to introduce you a little bit. Yeah, our next speaker, who has his presentation quarter to 2. But I'm really so happy that he can jump anytime. I know Mustafa quite well. We have been working together for many years. So Dr. Mustafa is an assistant professor at Monofia University in Egypt. He specializes in the interdisciplinary study of media, politics, and immigration. He holds a PhD from Roskilde University in Denmark. Dr. Mustafa was a colleague at my previous project, Mediatized Diaspora, at the University of Copenhagen. Dr. Mustafa, the floor is yours, and thank you for jumping and present your presentation.
Thank you. Can you just start recording if possible?
Sorry?
Are you recording?
Yes.
Yes, great, great. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Ihab for organizing this fascinating workshop, and I would like also to thank each participant for the inspiring presentations. I have really enjoyed listening and discussing each one. Well, my paper is about the characteristics of social media narratives during Gaza war, and I'm only focusing on X. So if you followed what is going on regarding the international discourse of war and peace since October 7th, you will realize a radical shift in the alignment and behavior regarding the Palestinian case. I have gone through the military statements issued by Hamas and the IDF, and I have found a notable shift in the language. There is something, there is something big is going on. A radical discourse is used, pointing, for example, at a complete elimination of each other. So this is one layer of what I looked at. The second layer in my research is the international audience. I have also noticed that there is a kind of an unprecedented support for the Palestinians in the international arena, who started to talk about the Palestinian historical grievances and to take part in demonstrations, sit-ins all over the world. As you already have seen what happened at the American and European universities. Another level of support coming from the top figures of society. So if you go through, for example, Gaza hashtag or Israel hashtag on Twitter, and look at the top comments or top tweets or the verified accounts, how they support the Palestinians, you will realize that something different is going on. A third kind of support on a bigger level is coming from countries that started to recognize Palestine as an independent state. Yes, look at Norway, Ireland, and Spain. The fourth level of support has been adopted by international organizations such as ICC. I know it's still in its initial phase and it's still not in its full swing, but there is something happening. There is a shift in the international discourse toward this complicated case. So to simplify my research, let me clarify the overall approach of the study and the rationale behind the analysis. So this figure identifies 5 layers of social actors involved in the war narratives, and I am planning to investigate each and to uncover the link between each layer. So currently I am almost done with the analysis of 2 layers. I mean the military statements of Hamas and the IDF. And the second layer is the comments of Twitter users on these statements. And the other 3 categories or the other 3 layers is still in process. Well, the idea behind all of this is to answer a research question on how the narratives of key social actors gained global traction through social media. And when I say social actors, I mean 5 different social actors. I mean the IDF and the Hamas, global audience, influential figures, competing states and international institutions. In doing so, I aim to achieve 3 key research objectives. First, to examine the characteristics of the narratives adopted by social actors regarding the war. Second, to assist societal institutions, including political entities, in developing effective discourse for addressing and responding to the conflict, and to contribute to the theoretical development of narrative frameworks in understanding conflicts and their global perceptions. And how this is gonna be done, I looked at statements of the IDF and the Hamas military spokespersons, and I also looked at the audience comments to both countries' statements, international institution statements on Twitter. Methodologically, I use two types of methods. The first one is discourse analysis, and the purpose behind the discourse analysis is to examine the language used by the IDF and Hamas's spokespersons on social media. And I'm going to focus on the framing and the ideology and the power and the rhetoric of each spokesperson. Secondly, I use the sentiment analysis mainly to analyze the emotional tone in public reactions on social media, and I'm going also to focus on the emotion of users and influential figures on Twitter, how they um, portray the emotion during commenting or posting the content on social media. I'm also going to look at the public sentiment and the alignment. Are they going to support or to oppose a specific kind of statement or a specific kind of narrative? The preliminary analysis of my research has come up with some interesting insights. Looking at the military statements, I found out that a primary theme in the discourse used by both spokesperson was the justifications of actions. Everyone of them was trying to justify his military actions against each other. So for example, the IDF tried to portray the military action as defensive. So they always say that the Israeli military operations is defensive and they are retaliating to what they have seen in the October 7th. For example, in a statement, the spokesperson of the IDF has once said the IDF makes vast efforts not to hit civilians. On the other hand, Hamas spokesperson tried to position the actions as resistance against colonial oppression and occupation. So there is a kind of an attempt to link the present conflict to the historical struggles, invoking religious and anti-colonial rhetoric. And this is something that was completely ignored by the spokesperson of the IDF. For example, Abu Ubaidah has once said, Operation Al-Aqsa flood an explosion in the face of the enemy after decades of oppression. A secondary theme repeated by both spokespersons is the legitimization of authority. The IDF spokesperson tries to portray itself or to portray the military as a legitimate and moral defender of a sovereign nation. And he also tries to frame that in the context of the international order. He many times repeated the word of international order and international laws. On the other hand, Hamas tries to position itself as the authentic voice of the Palestinian resistance and identity. And they also challenge the legitimacy of Palestinian Authority and the existential and external mediators. I mean, they try to say or to convey a message that Hamas is the main representative of the Palestinian voice. For example, Abu Ubaidah has said it is a struggle for victory or martyrdom. In using the language, the IDF tries to appear formal and procedural to reflect professionalism. Hagari has once said terrorist neutralization. He just tries to repeat some procedural terms or concepts like terrorist neutralization, precise operation, and also operational and intelligence efforts. So this kind of language usually convey a message is there is something formal and there is something procedural. For Hamas, the spokesperson of Hamas tried to be emotionally charged, and he tries to humanize the cause and to to rally many supporters. For example, he mentioned, "O our people, you are the makers of victory and the bearers of its banner with the pure blood of the martyrs." Emotionally, the IDF sentiment was sometimes positive and sometimes negative. He used positive language and positive words such as success, security, prevented, or defended. And these words were used when he was talking about the military achievements of the IDF. He used also a negative sentiment when he tried to describe Hamas or describe the Palestinian in Gaza. He used the words of terrorist, threat, attack, violations, and so on. And he once mentioned, we have updated 26 families regarding the death of their loved one. In such example, he tries to tell the audience that we have been facing problems that have infected our society. So this is something to provoke the emotions of the audience. Hamas was more optimistic despite negative circumstances. They faced something like a crisis in Gaza Strips, but the spokesperson tried to be optimistic as much as possible. They also, I have also another example here, a quotation Abu Ubaidah have just mentioned. The enemy has inflicted all forms of oppression and wrongful aggression upon our people. We fight under God's watchful eye. We bring glad tidings to our noble prisoners of freedom, victory, and relief. I have also analyzed the audience comments on these statements, and I have noticed that there was a polarization and ideological framing. Hamas supporters, for example, they tried to frame the actions or the military actions of Hamas as part of a long-standing struggle for justice and liberation. So there is something in line with the Hamas spokesperson and the Hamas statements. One of the users have mentioned if Israeli child killers keep murdering innocent unarmed civilians over and over again, then their territory needs to be destroyed as well. Fair enough. God bless the resistance. May God vanish all the child killers Israel from the child killers of Israel from the land of Palestine. Amen. On the other hand, the IDF supporters try to frame Israel's actions as a defensive responding to existential threats. So this is also something in line with the IDF statements. A user have also mentioned men, descendants of Abraham, heroes, my cousins, destroy them above and below the ground. You have the right to protect your borders. May God protect you and guard you with his eye that never sleeps. One of the repeated themes was the victimization and justification of actions. For Hamas supporters, they try to use a victimization as a narrative and to mention the historical grievances with a strong moral justification for resistance. For example, someone has said, God bless the resistance. For the IDF supporters, they try also to use self-defense language, security, and the protection of Israeli citizens to justify the actions committed against civilians in Gaza. Someone have mentioned when it comes down to it, regardless of what any leader, council or organization has to say, Israel has the right and the duty to defend and protect the people, borders, and sovereignty against anyone who attacks. Another important theme is the global injustice and the global support for pro-Hamas discourse. Several users try to highlight the international hypocrisy and the double standards in addressing the Palestinian suffering. One of the interesting example or quotation, someone have said, if not that Joe Biden is holding Israel's back, this war would be long over. On the other hand, for the pro-IDF discourse, they have focused on the lack of international support for Israel, emphasizing the need for a global backing. One of the interesting quotations someone mentioned, most here in America, despite the mentally protesters, support Israel and pray for you. God bless you. God is on your side. President Trump will be back. He will restore America, support you, and restore our world. So to conclude, I think I have come up with some interesting insights. For example, I have found that the IDF portrays its actions as defensive while Hamas positions their actions as resistance. The audience emotional intensity strongly favor support for Hamas. So when it comes to the comparison between Hamas and the IDF, most of the audience comments on the statements made by both sides were favoring Hamas. The audience also tended to portray Hamas as fighting for justice and as a victim of systematic oppression. The audience tries to portray the IDF as responding to terror, but with concerns about civilian harm, making their narrative more complex than the unwavering support for Hamas. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, really. Thank you very much. It was really interesting, and you have, yeah, you have many different perspectives in your presentation, which is really good to hear. We hope that a chapter in a book could be really, really good as well. So, do we have any question here?
Any
Yeah,
comments, recommendations?
yeah.
This is still a work in progress, and I will appreciate any recommendations regarding the analysis and also regarding the theorization of narratives and the concept of narratives. This is something I have been trying to formulate.
Yeah, but yeah, I really think that we don't have any question right now. So Xenia, she has one.
Yeah, do you hear me?
Yes.
No, I was just thinking if you can put on your slide again regarding narratives, because I keep thinking about positioning theory. I keep thinking about Entman's book about what is it called? What's the word he's using? Anyway, can you put on your slide again for the narrative part?
Moment, yeah.
Yeah, and then I was also thinking, because you have this wide range of themes that you want to look at, would there be any themes that would be beneficial to narrow it down to, so to speak?
Just a moment. I'm trying to share the slides of the themes. Yeah, when it comes to the elements of the analysis, for discourse analysis, there is different categories of elements. The discourse analysis, and through the discourse analysis, I'm trying to focus on how each side trying to frame itself. For example,
I
Hamas.
think, Entman is talking about framing. I don't know if you read the book,
Yeah.
The Projections of Power. I think it could fit very well because he's also talking about this with enemy images. I think it would make sense to look into to his way of understanding it.
Yeah, sure. With Intiman, he used 4 categories of framing elements like
Exactly.
the case, the reason, the moral
The
justification,
cause, yeah.
and so on.
Mm.
And I'm not fully guided by Intiman here. I'm trying just to look at how they portray themselves, not looking at the whole set of the framing theory.
Then you could look into positioning theory. That could also be a way of doing it.
Sure.
Position theory.
Yeah.
Do you know it?
No.
I think it's called Harry and Langenhove. It's something I work with earlier on. Positioning theory, positionality. It's the process, as I think you're describing, about the different positions that are made, how one describes oneself and describes the others. It's very interesting. Harry and Langenhove, I can send you a link to their book. Positioning theory could be a way of sort of incorporating all of this, and then you would have the ideology, the power, the rhetorics as part of shaping the positions that they want to take and creating the positions that they want the other to have. That could be a way of doing it.
Oh, that's great. Thanks. I think framing theory and the positioning theory is something more like.
I think it's a bit more fluid somehow, and I think it's more focusing on the position itself. As you say, Entman is more about the whole framework surrounding the narratives or the framing, right? So I think positioning theory could be a way of doing it.
I think you're right. Both theories can be can fit in the process of the analysis and to find some themes for analysis.
Yeah.
But to me they seem more like a methodological approach to how you analyze the data. And I was also interested about a theory on narrative, and I was inspired by our previous participant. She introduced the strategic narrative theory. This is something that could be also interesting, and I'm planning to look at several series on strategy on narrative, so I can come up with an idea about the narratives and how can they be used in the analysis. Because at the end, I'm trying to come up with a new model about narrative. Specifically, I'm trying to look at different layers. I have 5 layers in the paper, and every layer has a position, and every layer has a narrative, and every layer can, influence the other layers. So this is what I'm trying to look at.
Yeah, and I also think it's interesting when you want to have this, let's call it layer that contains emotions. So you sort of, I think you should read into positioning theory. I think it would be a good way to start, at least by developing your the way of doing it.
Yeah, I will. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is the figure that explains the 5 layers and how they could be in link to each other's.
Yeah.
Okay. It was pity that you didn't read my PhD because it was in Danish. I used a lot of positioning theory.
So you will be here before we have anyway.
So you have to study Danish first, but otherwise we can talk about this. So
no problem.
No, thank you so much, Mustafa, for your presentation. It was really reachable for us. Thank you. And I would say that I succeeded to catch our next presenter, Dr. Edina. Thank you so much, Dr. Edina. And we didn't give a hand to Mustafa to his presentation. Thank you so much, Mustafa.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And now our Next presenter is Associate Professor Dr. Edina Lila Mizazoros from Department of International Relations and European Study at the University of Oradea in Romania. Dr. Edina,
Yes.
I had an agreement with our presenters that I'm going to have a briefly introduction to each presenter. So if you like to add more, you are welcome to. It's your time. And now
Oh,
the floor
it's
is
okay.
yours.
It's okay, Professor. Sorry, but I don't know if you hear the noise. They're constructing something at the university. So the noise is coming from there, and I just finished the classes. So then after it, I have classes again. So I have to be really, really fast because
Okay.
until 5 o'clock Romanian time, I have classes. So dear colleagues, it's an honor and a pleasure for me to be here. And I'm honored that you have invited me to such a prestigious international conference. Let me tell you that I'm at the beginning of the research. So since the start of the war in Ukraine in 2022, and even before 2019, 2020, mainly my research was revolving around Romania. So how Romania resolved and how Romania managed the the migration crisis from 2015. But because I'm an ethnic Hungarian minority from my country, so I'm perfect, and Hungarian is my mother tongue. So I came back to research the media narratives from Hungary. So a project that I started a few years ago in order to complete the perception of the Hungarian government and to show it in a comparative way. So in this presentation, I want to follow the frame variations in Hungarian media coverage of the Ukrainian refugee crisis, but I intended to deliver it as a comparative analysis in order to show you the great difference between how Hungary perceived the crisis from 2015 and what was the perception at the level of the governmental apparatus and even at the level of the public. So some introductory remarks. I don't think that I have to introduce to you because all of us have heard about the Russian military intervention, the invasion of Ukraine at the end of February 2022. All of us, we have seen the triggering of one of the biggest displacements in Europe since the end of the Cold War. It displaced more than 6 million Ukrainians so far. And of course that it demanded fast solutions from all the decision makers, from supranational level, I mean EU level, intergovernmental, I mean at the level of nation states such as Romania, Hungary, neighboring countries, or even countries that were further, or countries that were outside the European Union, and even local actors as well. So it demanded swift solutions. So if we compare how Europe and the European Union reacted to the displacement of millions of Ukrainians with the crisis from 2015, we can find a sharp difference. I mean, at the level of the EU and its member states, we are witnessing an unprecedented level of solidarity, in contrast with the very fragmented vision that we have a few years ago in 2015 and 2016. And I believe that Hungary is a prominent case study. It's like quite unique. It's a very ambiguous case study because for years it has been conducting a very, very strong, one of the toughest anti-immigrant rhetoric and anti-immigrant policies. At the level of an EU member state, they have in the media narrative, they have communicated this message. We can clearly see speaking about the securitization of immigration in Hungary, and they have used various frames, starting with the academic, with the identity frame. So contrary to their stance, to the people coming from Middle Eastern countries and from Africa, they were well reopening and they have welcomed the Ukrainian people. So is that the attitude of the government in the predominant migration narrative that has been
The connection.
in the country. So what are my main objectives? So in my current paper, I want to show you not just how the Hungarian government managed the crisis, how they reacted to the initial and to the later phases, but mainly how it constructed the phenomenon with its Beach Act. I mean, within this courses, mainly taking into
I think the internet connection is a little bit bad right now. Dr. Egina, can you hear me?
Yes.
Is it my internet connection, Katrina, or okay?
No, I can't hear you well. I think it's Edina's.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's it. With the internet connection, we can't guarantee that it's good all of the time, and therefore I didn't like to be home today just to be sure the university connection is better.
So can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I had poor internet connection and it just took me out of Zoom. I'm sorry. I am at the university, so
yeah, never mind. Yeah,
sorry. So I will share again.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, never.
Okay. Is it visible?
Yes.
So I made it a slideshow mode. Can you see why I'm changing?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so it's changing the slides.
Yes.
Is it okay?
Fine.
Okay, so I was talking about the objectives. I told you that I'm at the beginning of my research, so I'm open for feedbacks and recommendations as well. So I want to deconstruct in a sequential way how the Hungarian government framed the displacement of the Ukrainian citizens since the beginning of the war until recently, until 2024. But I told you that I want to put an emphasis and I want to make a comparative analysis to show what kind of frames were used in the previous crisis from 2015, because I told you that Hungary represents a quite unique case of a country that was against those immigrants or the third country nationals who came in 2015, and their stance completely changed to 180 degrees. So when it comes to discourses, governmental discourses, we can speak about substantial frame variations that I identified in the discourses and the news coverage. So how it was presented in various media outlets, news portals. Some of them, they're closer to Fidesz. Some of them, they're with the opposition in the country. So I'm speaking about the media. Comparison with that of the Syrian crisis. So the hegemonic power discourse that has characterized and dominated Hungary for years, mainly the securitization frame and the securitization rhetoric, was replaced with the solidarity, humanitarian, and peace narrative. So as you could see, mainly I promote in my paper a qualitative analysis. I want to make a critical discourse analysis. I mean a qualitative discourse analysis, analyzing the speech acts at various levels, especially targeting the decision makers. Of course, I want to assess public surveys in order to compare the perception of the public, in order to understand how the average Hungarian citizen felt about the crisis from 2015, and what was their perception towards the crisis and the displaced persons that came in 2022. Of course, I want to know the opinion of the civil society and of the NGOs and of international organizations. And one of the main objectives is to analyze the media narratives. So this critical discourse analyzes what it is about. It's mainly based on Fairclough's critical discourse theory, and it departs from the hypothesis that the understanding and thorough analysis of political discourse can ultimately lead to better comprehension of actions and policies. So this is my main idea based on the critical CDA analysis of Ernesto Laclau and Chantal Mouffe. So I'm going to use their discourse theoretical approach. I want to implement it in my research, departing from the presumption that the hegemonic power discourse in Hungary from 2015 until 2022 related to the migration and related to third country nationals, their asylum applications. It was a securitization. So securitization, it was the hegemonic power discourse. And as I told you, it was changed with the peace, solidarity, empathy, rhetoric, and even made a differentiation between those people who came in 2015. They were the so-called bad migrants and the good migrants. This was the perception. As another theoretical framework, I was thinking about using constructivism. So the constructivist tenets and the securitization specter introduced by the representatives of the Copenhagen School. So I want to show you that how the problem of migration was framed as a threat by the governmental apparatus from 2015. Using various narratives, they have communicated the message to the written media, online media, to various channels, social media, even billboards. So by various forms of verbal and non-verbal communication. So let me tell you that already in 2015, the Hungarian government started framing migration as a threat, and they have used various frames. Some aspects about Hungary and its migration profile. Probably the vast majority of you know that they got accepted in the European Union in 2004. They have never been a colonial or expansionist country. And before the crisis from 2015, Hungary had never experienced significant migratory moves or asylum claims on its territory. While in 2015, according to statistics, after Germany, Hungary registered the second highest number of first-time asylum applications at the level of the European Union. So this was something new for the government as well, who didn't know at the beginning how to manage. By using some statistics provided by various independent research institutes from Hungary, such as the Tarki Social Research Institute, I just wanted to show you the evolution of the levels of xenophobia and xenophilia in the country. Here you have the explanation. I know that I do not have time in order to tell everything. Just please look at the evolution of the levels of xenophobia and xenophilia within the Hungarian population from the beginning, from the end of the Cold War. First, please look at the xenophobes, thinkers, and xenophiles. At least we had xenophiles. So we had Hungarian citizens that nurtured positive feelings, amiable feelings towards foreigners, while based on the fact that the Hungarian government depicted, I told you that within discursive act and within various forms of both verbal and non-verbal communication instruments, they have framed migration as a threat. And just please look at the period of 2014 and by the end of 2016. It means that the government had been successful in securitizing migration and in designating immigration, especially economic migrants. So first of all, why I'm saying this 2015 refugee and migration crisis? According to the Hungarian perception, to the Hungarian government's official stance, the vast majority of the people who came in 2015, they were economic migrants. Yes, some of them I mean, they accept that some of them, they were refugees, but they say that the vast majority were economic migrants. And just please look how successful in quotation mark, were the Hungarian government's framing the threat, and from having few percentage of xenophiles, for example, 10% of the population, according to the Turkey Research Institute in 2014, at least, they have declared themselves xenophiles. I mean, to nurture positive feelings towards foreigners and third country nationals outside Hungary and from outside Europe. And just look the results of the securitization rhetoric and all the policies that have been elaborating, demonizing migrants. The number of xenophiles, it was almost non-existent. I mean, 1%, 53%, they were xenophobes, and 46% thinkers. What kind of frames were used by the governmental apparatus in 2015? From the beginning, in 2015, when already waves of third country nationals started arriving in various EU member states. What were the frames? First of all, they have used the economic frame within the media. So the economic frame, what it meant, that on the first hand, they want to steal away the jobs of the Hungarian people. The second frame related to economy, that they will not want to work, but they will be socially assisted. So will be taking away the jobs or not working. So this was one of the first frames. After it, we have the identity frame, the religious, the cultural frame, and the securitizing frame. So migrants take away the jobs of the Hungarian people, zero immigration, migrants will set up parallel societies rhetoric, Muslim migrants represent a threat to the national identity, religion, and the way of life rhetoric. And I told you that later on, it was mainly that securitization rhetoric. We witness, so my presentation is longer. I know that I do not have time for it. So Hungary positioned itself, they had the same stance, mainly when it comes to migration and to 2015 impasse, the same stance as the other three countries from the V4, like Slovakia, Poland, and Czechia, but mainly Poland and Slovakia there were some discourses of Mr. Orbán launched on the occasion of the national celebration. They were revolving around this threat that the third country nationals represent, that migrants who want to destroy the national identity, Christianity, they represent a threat. So this was the rhetoric. I told you that there were other forms of non-verbal ways of communicating. So they were the anti-immigrant billboards. Probably the vast majority of you do not understand Hungarian. I mean, these billboards were already positioned. The country was full with them already from the spring of 2015. So we can say that Hungary started the securitization rhetoric. Apparently, these billboards were targeting those people that were about to come in the country. Then you are wondering why aren't they in English, or at least in the languages of the countries from where the people are coming from. Because third country nationals were never the targets from the very beginning. The targets of the securitization rhetoric were the Hungarian citizens. So the first billboard, if you come to Hungary, you can take away the jobs of the Hungarians. As I told you, this economic frame. If you come to Hungary, you have to respect our culture. So it was a saga of national consultations and billboards. Already in 2015, the Hungarian Prime Minister launched a national consultation on immigration and terrorism, speaking about the fact that Brussels has not managed properly the migration impasse, deliberately linking migrants to terrorist attacks that they were committed in countries such as France and Belgium. What was the result of the national consultation? 1 million respondents. The consultation cost the governments 1 billion Hungarian forints, and more than 90% of those who sent back the letters or who filled in the national consultation online, they agreed, and they have legitimized the Hungarian government to take tougher measures. For example, migrants who cross the borders illegally needed to be returned home. The immigration policy failed. After it, we see other measures as well, such as erecting a fence with Croatia and Serbia, a technical fence that is there since September 2015, the declaration of state of emergencies, and so on, a saga of national consultations, referendums. I know that I do not have time for it. I wanted to show you this very exclusionary stance of the Hungarian government from the end of 2014, the beginning of 2015, when we're speaking about third country nationals who came to Europe, who applied for asylum or some form of international protection. So these were the policies, the saga of national consultations, the entire Hungarian parliamentary elections from 2018, they were framed around the anti-immigrant rhetoric and the George Soros conspiracy theory. Please look at one of the billboards, Stop Immigration. So as you can see third country nationals coming to Hungary. So this is one of the most important. I can find some similarities here. So this picture was from the campaign of Fidesz from 2018, and I can find some similarities with the Brexit propaganda of the United Kingdom Independence Party. So the breaking point, the second poster, I can find some similarities in anti-immigrant propaganda and anti-immigrant rhetoric. So by implementing the securitization theory, the governmental apparatus was a securitizing actor that launched an appeal for securitization by designating migration or immigration as a threat. The government, it was communicating the message to different channels, as you could see there, written media, online media, radio, social media platform, billboards. They needed the consent of the people, of the reference object, and it enabled the Hungarian government to take measures which under normal situations couldn't be possible. They have amended the asylum law, built a temporary fence in September, so the Hungarian army built a fence that exists even as we speak. More policemen at the southern border, involvement of the army. They have declared state of emergency at those two counties in the vicinity of Serbia, more severe laws. And besides the National Border Guard, they have created new so-called border hunter units. However, I want to show you that not everything is what it looks in case of Hungary. So please keep in mind this exclusionary rhetoric and policies. So there's good migrant versus bad migrant rhetoric and policies. I mean, you see how they treated foreigners, but on the other hand, Hungary on a yearly basis takes around 70 to 75,000 people to alleviate the labor shortage. So they take in foreign workers. For Hungarians like me, I mean, representatives of ethnic minorities in the neighboring countries with Hungary, such as Ukraine, Romania, or even Slovakia. The Hungarian government has been giving us the possibility to get Hungarian citizenship. If one or even two of your ancestors, you can prove that you have a Hungarian ancestry. So settlers, immigration permit holders, and preferential naturalization people are accepted on ethnic grounds. Fidesz uses them as new voters, but only a small part of them moved to Hungary. 20,000 Chinese and Russians were allowed in the country who bought the so-called settlement bonds, and even Hungary and the Hungarian universities are bringing in foreign students, especially from the developing world. Around 50,000 young people joined the program of PhD or postdoc in the 2015-2021 period. So this was the first part of the comparative analysis. If you go on the site of United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, you can look upon the latest data. As you could see, I've got in case of Hungary data from the 10th of November 2024, that how many Ukrainian displaced people from Ukraine, they were recorded in the country. I mean, in Hungary, as you could see, 61,610, and among which almost 47,500 applied for asylum. or some form of temporary protection or international protection. And Hungary, just as my country, Romania, is part of the United Nations Refugee Response Plan. I mean, it's a neighboring country. It was transited by millions of Hungarian displaced persons, but as you could see, despite the fact that it's a neighboring country, on the long run, not many people want to stay in Hungary. I have found some research in order to show you the public perception. Let me tell you that, again, both the government and both the public opinion, so the average Hungarian person, they were very, very welcoming towards the forced migrants. The Ukrainian displaced persons, if you can see that list, Magyarország, it refers to Hungary. So it was 63% in the 2020 period. They were favoring, I'm sorry, but it was a student that came in my office that I do not know whom he is. So as you could see, in 2022, more than 70% of the population agreed that Hungary has to welcome migrants from Ukraine. But what was the situation? At the outbreak of the war in Russia, the anti-refugee legal system in Hungary reached to that point that it was no longer possible to file asylum application in Hungary except outside the country's borders at the Hungarian embassy of the nearest safe country, for example, in Serbia. The perception of the Ukrainian refugees by the government and largely by the population was radically different. I saw a lot of interviews and focus groups, research of various colleagues of various scholars, and even so everyone that they asked, they perceive differently. Those who came from Ukraine and those who came, as I told you a few years ago. So they called them migranți, it's called migrants, while Ukrainians were called as refugees, who are displaced people. They were coming from a war-torn area. So the perception was different. So instead of a massive rejection from 2015 and 16, they have oriented towards acceptance, tolerance, and empathy. And to be honest, the reason for this positive turn is that in 2022, the refugee wave involved citizens of a neighboring state. Hungary and Ukraine, they share a common history. In the Zakarpattia Oblast, it's a part of Ukraine, but according to the 2001 census, a significant number of Hungarian ethnic minorities are present. The same is with Romania. So there are also Romanian ethnic minorities in Ukraine today. So is Ukrainian ethnic minorities in Romania, in the northern parts of the country. So some of them, I told you, because of this naturalization process, some of the Hungarians from Ukraine, from Zakarpattia Oblast, they had a Hungarian citizenship. So the last census from 2001 said that there are 152,000 declared themselves as Hungarians. In 2024, statistics say that there are less, between 80 and 90,000 Ukrainian citizens who declare themselves as Hungarian ethnic minorities. So due to the fact that the asylum system was dismantled step by step in Hungary, the basic services necessary for receiving asylum were lacking. No reception center, no interpreter, no social worker. So it was an arduous task for Hungary to help. But I told you that they were welcoming, and we should not forget the important role of the civil society and of NGOs. When it comes to media narrative, so what I'm planning in the upcoming months for the elaboration of the article, for the analysis of the media narrative. So I told you that besides qualitative discourse analysis of prominent personalities at government level, NGO level, citizens level, and after finding out the public perception, I want to analyze various newspapers and prominent news portals from Hungary. Some of them, they are close to Fidesz, to the government. Some of them, they're the opposite. For example, Népszava, as you could see, but the Magyar Nemzet, the Hungarian nation, is close to Fidesz, so is pestisrácok.hu. It means that kids of from Budapest.hu. So I prepare to deliver my analysis of the media narrative, and my preliminary results or what I reached at this incipient level. I tried to compare the perception, as I told you, with the comparative analysis for 2015 and 2022. So what was the typical migrant and the main characteristics of the situation from 2015 and 2022, and what was the perception of the average Hungarian? In 2015, the migrants, I mean the TCNs, they do not know Hungary. In case of Ukraine, everyone knows about Ukraine. I told you that we have Hungarian ethnic minorities in Ukraine. Many of them, they were working. So there existed links and networks between Hungary and Ukraine. So even Ukrainian citizens, they were working in Hungary. What about the 2015? I told you that the perception of the government and of the average Hungarian citizen, that we're not dealing with genuine refugees, but mainly with economic migrants. So those who came in 2015, mainly they were a mix of economic migrants and of refugees, so asylum seekers. What is the perception about the situation in Ukraine? They're mainly displaced persons, people that were put on a move because of the Russian military intervention. What is the main characteristic they say about those people who came in 2015? That they're mainly young men, very strong physically, and they're saying that why didn't they stay in their home country in order to fight for their home country? This is the same stance as they had with the Ukrainians. In 2022, what did they say? The average Hungarian citizen saw that more women, children, and elderly people were coming, and while the Ukrainian men were staying home in order to fight for their country. When it comes to culture, those with 2015, they are different cultural characteristics, such as the religion, the language, and even the race and the skin color, which on many occasions is not white. Sorry about that, is the perception. What about the Ukrainians? Even though the language is different, but the culture, the tradition, and the skin color, and told you that they have a shared past. Even if on many occasions the relationship between Hungary and Ukraine and political grounds and because of the rights of Hungarian ethnic minorities is, on many occasions, it was rather chilly, so rather cold. What about the last characteristics? Those migrants that came from Africa or from Middle Eastern countries, they're not informed well, they're misinformed, and on many occasions this situation is being exploited by the so-called smuggling groups. What about the first waves of those people who came in 2022? I mean, in case of Romania, it was the same as well. One of the first who came, they were relatively affluent. I mean, having a better economic condition, they were well informed, and they were not exploited or deemed to be exploited by smuggling groups. So thank you for your attention. These are my preliminary results.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really, it's really interesting, this presentation as well. I actually feel home. I can just change the word Hungary to Denmark or many other Western countries. Yeah, unfortunately, I know someone who couldn't present in this workshop. She made a comparison study as well between Syrian refugees in 2015 and Ukrainian refugees in 2022 on Danish, sorry, on Danish media. So it could be really good to make comparison between these two chapters or these two presentations. Thank you so much, because you gave us a really available perspective on which to reflect. So thank you.
Thank you. If you do not mind, I have to go now because I told you that I have a class. So I'm sorry. Sorry.
No,
thank you.
No, it's
Thank
fine.
you again for the opportunity.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
thank you so much. And if you have any comment, I will send it to you.
Please, of course. And constructive criticism as well. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. Yes, we, according to our plan, that we have to have a coffee break to 1:45. Are you ready for this? So shall we say that we can have a cup of coffee and for a few minutes, for 15 minutes. So we're
Yes.
going to start again 1:45. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you so much, and enjoy your coffee or your tea.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Recording stopped.